Mortgage rules were announced by the federal government on Monday. I think it's a game changer. I think it has a tremendous impact on both the mortgage industry and on especially first-time buyers on low equity mortgage or transactions. Plus, anyone else who needs an insured mortgage is just qualified for less. Ozzie Jurek joins me on the line now. Ozzie, let's get through a lot of this thing. I want to talk about consequences of this. The details basically are straightforward. There's a lot of ramifications, but in a nutshell, I'd suggest that this is the detail. It's the equivalent of raising mortgage rates by 2%, from 2.5 to 4.64 de facto, because that's the mortgage you qualify for right now. You've got to not go off of the negotiated rate. You've got to go off of eligibility as if it was 4.64. Certainly that took the industry by surprise.
Yeah, and if it's an insured mortgage, right? But the real thing is the totality of it. I mean, the changes are wide-ranging. They're sudden. It's almost like it's been planned as a let's really make sure the mortgage market is hammering down the housing market. I mean, if you had before an income of $60,000 with 5% down payment, you experience a reduction of purchasing power from $380,000 to $305,000, because this is really the key, Mike. While they're trying to hit us in Toronto and Vancouver, and maybe rightly so, it's sad that the borrowers in the majority of the country are clearly paying the price because they're not having a runaway market. They want to buy that $400,000 house. Now they can't because they need much more down payment. And the impact will be that in some of the no bank lenders are saying it might be as much as 40% of the buyer population is going to be taken out of the market. And if you think that is not enormous, remember, you can't sell your house if you don't have a first-time buyer on yours, and you won't buy the third buyer. All the way up, it will have a ripple effect on the market that is going to be much more negative than people realize.
I agree. I said that off the top. When you're looking at the broad economic impact, this is the one industry we can't afford to slow down. They have now purposely slowed down. Finance department says it's going to result in 8% lower sales. I think they're underestimating it. But let's come to one of the other things that's big, is that you've chronicled on this show very clearly that the Vancouver market, if that's one of the targets, had peaked in April.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, and certainly somebody in Edmonton and Calgary is saying to me today, no kidding, Mike. Their market's peaked has been in a downturn far longer than that. So this is a real kick at a time when maybe the measure wasn't needed. And we don't have some default problem in mortgages in this country.
Well, that's the crazy thing. Here we go after the first-time buyer. You said it so rightly, and I have that as a headline. We talk affordability, which is really misleading, because the very people that we're supposed to make it easier to afford, it's worse for them. It's not just worse. They can't get the money, number one. Number two, they can't qualify for the mortgage, and it's a lot more expensive in terms of the insurance that they have to pay. And so it's all along, it is totally misleading. I think under the foreign buyer umbrella, let's get the foreign buyer. We're going to bring in everything we always wanted to bring in, and they have. I mean, it's one shoe after another dropped all week long.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the fact that we've been talking about this. I tell you, 10 minutes after these rules, I wrote the business comment for the following morning, and I can't believe how long it's taken the general media to pick up on the fact that this is a direct attack on a lot of first-time buyers and on the mortgage industry itself. I don't think the media's figured that one out. We're talking about a huge hit to anyone who's a non-bank lender.
Yeah, I call it it's an early Christmas present for the 6 big banks. It's a kick in the teeth for all the lenders, and because when you take a look at it, you take Genworth, for instance, which is an insurer, but a private insurer, just like CMHC. Their stock dropped 14% in a day. People that are in the market realize they're going to do one heck of a lot less business. And it's not just that lender. All the off-center lenders, they can no longer do the business because by the new rules, they will have 40%, maybe as much as 40% lower amount of business. The people then will go to the banks. The banks will take that extra business, but at a much higher price and charge to the buyer. And here what I'm saying to mortgage brokers, you may very well be kicked out by one of the banks or even two of the banks, because if they have more business, they may not need you. So be very nice to your friendly bank if you're a mortgage broker.
Let's talk prices for a second, Ozzie. First of all, it's going to, I think the market's going to take, a year and a half to digest these changes. But right now, as you say, with people qualifying, if they need an insured mortgage and they're qualifying for less, even if they put more than 20% down, well, we're going to get a stall in the market, or sellers are going to have to lower their prices. It's going to be one or the other.
No question, and certainly in Vancouver that has been the case already. And we said on the show last week and the week before that year over year we still look good on the price. But if you go April till now, we are already down between 4 and 11% in different suburbs in Vancouver. And so the thing is, we said we saw an across-the-board year-over-year increase would be recorded at year-end of 10%. We're now looking at that to be as much as 20%. But it's not just because we're looking at different areas, at different market mixes and different. But overall, I think it will have a much bigger impact than we originally had thought.
Well, I'm just thinking of the people in the real estate industry in Calgary, Edmonton, other parts of Alberta, Red Deal, wherever you've got into Saskatoon, they are not in a strong market right now, of course, because of other factors. But my goodness, this must feel like a hell of a kick in the teeth for all of those centers that are not named Vancouver and Toronto, basically.
Exactly. What are they thinking? The market, we're looking at Edmonton, one of the nicest places in the world to live. The average price for a nice single-family home is around $450,000, and before the 17th, I could relatively easily, with my 5% down payment, I could get maybe a mortgage of $380. Now I only get $305. So what's going to be? I'm going to either back off as a buyer, or the owner has to reduce the price in already a slow market. It hits all these markets that it shouldn't be hitting. Why should you make a national policy like that? It's almost like, I know it sounds stupid, but it's almost like a conspiracy. Let's bring this in. The other thing, of course, under the umbrella of getting all the capital gains in, one of the big things is that it's literally a game changer. You have to now report your principal residence on your tax return every year, whether you sell or not. And you got to make sure that you understand you have a single-family home, but you have a basement suite. Well, guess what? If you sell your house, that basement suite will now have to be deducted from your profit. And let's say you had $1 million gain, you have to declare 50% of that. And it might cost you $50,000. The tax grab is immense. And in the middle of all that, West Vancouver goes and brings in a speculation tax. That's after only 13 single-family homes sold in September this year versus 77 last year. It's the horse is dashing down the road since April, and we're now really closing the door tight.
And by the way, I'm going to say, and again, I talk about what our track record here is for a good reason, because this isn't politics. We're not talking about choosing a TV show. We're talking about if you have the right methodology, it will show itself, as Mark Leibovitz just did in predicting the current 1-month decline in gold. His methodology called it. Our methodology has been very clear, calling the drop in the Canadian dollar, calling the drop in the oil and other resource prices, calling where the economy is going, in other words, nowhere, calling interest rates. All of that is because we have the right methodology. And when I look at what's happened in government, your example about West Vancouver is an exceptional one. I mean, talk about not understanding the dynamics of the market. And to put in something this late in the game, to me, is absolutely head-shaking and a testimonial to their ignorance about how markets work.
Yeah, I should hasten to add, it hasn't been approved yet, but it's on the agenda. And there's a whole bunch of, look.
Well, fair enough, but it shouldn't be approved at this point. Where were you 3 years ago, for goodness sakes?
Yeah, and when you look at the vacant house tax and all of the taxes, right now we are assembling all of the taxes that we have now in the housing market. Maybe we can make that a subject next week, but it opens your eyes. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in a market that you're very concerned about, that we may have a recession. In fact, this move may bring on a recession faster than we thought. So, my goodness gracious, we have to take a deep breath and realize we still live in paradise, and the world will go on, and we'll come through this too, but it's a little darker than it was last week.
Well, I'll tell you, when you jeopardize people's employment, I get vexed about it. One of the most tragic things you can do to a family is to manufacture a job loss, and that's what this is. This isn't because somebody did something in Europe, if you know what I mean. We don't set oil prices, so we've had the devastation there. We don't set, we don't determine exactly how many exports of our exports the U.S. buys. But this is something that we had in our control, and I think it's misguided, and it's ill-timed, to say the least. Ozzy, we got so much to talk about. I'll look forward to more. And go to Jurok.com. He'll be giving you constant updates there.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Have a good weekend. Have a nice
Well,
holiday
not
weekend.
anymore now.